Hello and welcome to the harvest season. My name is Al.
And my name is Rochelle.
And we're here to talk about farming games.
Woo!
Woo! I've been told that apparently I can't say woo unsarcastically, even if I'm meaning it that way. So thank you, Stuart, for that.
Choice feedback.
He did say to try and woo in American.
I don't... As... unfortunately an American. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, and I'm in two minds as to whether to try or not, because I've not tried before recording, and I feel like it would be a mistake to do it first on the podcast.
I'm sure we'll figure it out someday.
One day.
I guess we could just ask Stuart what he meant, but that's the easy way. We don't do the easy way around here.
Yeah, apparently I just sound sarcastic all the time, so that's very sad. I think it might be the accent that's the issue. I don't know.
I don't know. I can usually tell when you're being sarcastic, but I talk to you sometimes.
Sometimes.
Not as much recently. Oh my gosh. I have so much happening in my life. We'll talk about that sometime.
So, usual format of an episode. We are, and by that I mean of a non-Story of Seasons episode. For the first time in months.
Thank goodness.
We'll go over the lack of feedback. We will talk about what we've been playing or not. We will go over the news. And then this episode, we're going to talk about mods in farming games. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It is. It's going to be great. I heard it that time in my voice. I heard the sarcasm. It's going to be great.
It'll be a nice,
less sarcastic?
Easy peasy, relax, one-off episode. Just decompress from the 10 million hours about Trio of Towns. It's going to be great.
Also, it was easier to organise this one because a little bit of inside baseball for everyone who's not me or Rochelle is that this is the second of 3 we're recording in a row. So, yeah, because exciting things are happening. So, on that note, Rochelle, what have you been playing?
Okay, so I have not picked up a system. That's not true. I have picked up a system. I did open my DS twice since we last recorded, but it was to trade Pokemon with my BFF Ray, who is trying to complete their Alola Pokedex. Other than that, I have not been playing a lot of games. I'm getting ready to go on a trip. It's very stressful.
It's an exciting trip, though.
It's going to be so great. We'll talk about that next time.
Oh, next time.
It'll be a surprise.
Okay.
And now everyone's like, what do you mean a surprise?
I mean, next time is still before you go.
Yeah, it'll be perfect. I'll tell you what I plan to take on the trip.
Okay.
So I've been preparing for this trip, so my gaming has been small. I have yet to get a picture of Conductor Whiskers in Neko Atsume, and I'm upset about it. Going on week 3 now. I'll get it eventually. It's fine. And I've been aggressively obsessing over Zombies Run, because when I'm anxious or antsy or upset, I need to move. So I go on a lot of really long walks, and I've been playing Zombies Run when I do that, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm going to stop there before this becomes the new Zombies Run podcast.
That would be a little bit of a one-sided podcast because there's only really one thing I can bring to that discussion, and it's not actually about the app.
Oh, that's okay. Anyway, if anybody plays Zombie Run, please email us. I want to talk to you.
I did once apply for a job to work for them.
6 to start, right?
Yeah. Didn't get the job.
I forgive you.
Thanks, I guess.
No, you're fine. I really, really enjoy it. I think I mostly enjoy the story. It's kind of like, it's very sci-fi. It has a good deal of like fake science, but it has this really nice balance of like, it knows when to take itself seriously and when to laugh at itself. And it has like these really good characters and lots of moments of like fun and silliness or like seriousness and sadness and like very poignant moments sprinkled in there. And I like it a lot. I cried in the middle of season 3. Which means nothing. I cry at everything. I always tell people, just so you know, I cry at everything, and they never believe me. And the next thing they know, I'm like sobbing at the restaurant, like, do you know how good these carrots are? And they never believe me until that moment. That's what I've been playing. I don't actually cry over carrots. Usually.
Are you okay just now?
Oh, I'm fine. Please email us about Zombies Run.
Well, email Rochelle about Zombies Run. I'm
they
not
do
really
like
that bothered.
Okay. They do seasons of story. And it's broken down into like missions. And they just started season 8. And I got it when it first came out years ago. And I only got through like the first couple seasons, and then I kind of dropped it. And I'm trying to catch up the story for seasons 8. So I'm just like playing the missions through as fast as I can, like a whole bunch at a time. I'm on season 5 right now. By the time you hear this, I will probably be caught up. We'll see. I've been doing a lot of walking.
Cool. Walking's good. I like walking.
That's all I got. Me too. I like to move.
Yeah.
So I'm also one of those people who likes to drive around, but it's expensive because it costs money.
It also doesn't have the advantage of,
True. It doesn't have the disadvantage of getting a weird look when you're like walking around the block at 2 a.m. in the rain and you're crying because that one mission in the middle of season 3 is very distressing. And there's a lady sitting in her car in front of her house smoking a cigarette, looking at you, crying, walking around the block repeatedly at 2 a.m. in the rain.
Well, look, if you're going to
so
commit,
it evens out.
You got to commit. Gotta commit all
the way. That's why I did 100 hours on Trio of Towns.
Well.
What have you been playing?
I'm glad you asked. I've mostly been playing... okay, right. So I caved and I bought Forager on PC. I was waiting for it to come out on Switch, but then I realised I want the game now.
This is me with Portia all over again.
It is. So expect an announcement about when the Switch version's coming out within days, probably before you hear this episode.
As is our luck.
So I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy it because you know what? I like the look of the game. I like the way the developer's working. It's an indie game. It's reasonably cheap, and I want to support indie game devs. So I'll probably end up buying it on both anyway. So I thought, let's just do it. We'll go for it. I'll get loads of time in on the PC and enjoy that first. And let me tell you, it is very fun, and I am very much addicted to it.
On a scale of 1 to 8, how much fun?
7.
That's pretty high.
Yeah, it's a really fun game. I've heard it's reasonably short in terms of the kind of storyline, because obviously they are bringing more stuff to that later on, as discussed in the last episode. But I'm not there yet, and I think, it'll obviously take me a lot longer to get there than most people because, let's say, when I say I've played it a lot, I mean I've played about 5 hours of it in the last week, which doesn't sound like a huge amount, but for me is a lot, especially for a PC game.
But you can't take with you on your commutes.
Exactly.
And you have small humans, low-level humans to take care of. Yes.
And they're really needy, right? I mean, food and just so needy. Thankfully, they do go to bed.
Low-level humans are the worst. You gotta pay attention to them, and they can't feed themselves, and like they need love and stuff.
Oh,
Like,
I
ugh.
know. So demanding. So demanding.
You have very cute small humans.
You're not wrong there. You're not wrong.
I'm a big fan.
So am I.
So you haven't been playing a lot.
So I've been playing a lot of that game, and it's really fun. I think it does have one problem, which isn't really a problem for me, but I think will be a problem for you, Rochelle, which is there is a day-night cycle, but there's no end to the day. So it just keeps on going. So you can just keep going, and there's no breakup of time. So it just keeps going, never ending.
So what you're telling me is I play this game and then it's 36 hours later.
Yeah. You may well finish
Okay.
the game in one sitting, is what I'm saying.
I have been warned. Is there like a time on how long the main story is?
That's a good question, actually.
Like an estimate? Because I know, thinking of short games, I'm pretty sure that the latest Harvest Moon, the latest Harvest Moon game, the main story you can beat in like 9 or 10 hours.
So the lovely website howlongtobeat.com says the main story is about 12 and a half hours long.
That's not too bad.
The main story plus extras is 16 hours, and the completionist player is about 19 hours.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. So,
I think there's kind of this idea that a lot of people have that for it to be worth it, it has to be a huge time investment. Like if you don't get 60 to 100 hours out of a game, that it's not worth it. And I don't like that, and I don't agree with that. What if I want to play a lot of short games? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
especially like I think I can understand that aspect of things when you're paying, say, £60 or something for a game. Like you want to make your money's worth from it.
Mm-hmm.
But when a game is, £15 or something, and you get 20 hours out of it, let's say you play it once and you complete everything, you get 20 hours out of it. Like that's
less than £1 an hour.
It is. And what other thing costs that little? You go watch a film, it's 2.5 hours long. It costs you, if you're getting it really cheap, a £5. That's still £2 to £3 an hour. Nothing is that cheap. It's really good. And that completely doesn't even take into consideration the fact that there are story updates coming. And of course, there are other ways to enjoy the game. If you can't afford lots of games, you can find ways to play the game more, like other playstyles and, challenges and stuff like that, which are just as fun.
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest point is that just like time played is not the definitive factor in what makes a game good or worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would gladly pay money for a short game that had a really, really good story. Like, that's why I buy books. Like, I can get a $45 book and it doesn't last me 100 years, but I enjoy it. And I don't think, oh, yeah, it was great, but I would have preferred it for 25. It's like, no, this was a good book. Thanks to the author for writing it. So
That feels like a very expensive book.
I don't know. I don't know how much books cost nowadays.
The
last book I bought.
I don't really buy books, but I feel like 10 to 15 is probably a more standard than 45. That feels very expensive for a book.
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. I have a book I'm looking to get right now, but it's like in the $60-ish range right now, I think. But it's also a small printing book, and it's an academic text. I read a lot of things. I'm a very boring person. I'm not a boring person. I read a lot of very interesting things. Moving on.
Yeah, so I think that's basically all I've been playing. Yeah. I mean, it's only been a week. So, yeah, lots of Forager. And I will probably keep playing Forager because it's very good. And
you keep playing Forager.
I will.
I'm going to keep playing Zombies Run.
You do that.
And next week, I'll let you know if Sam ends up burning down the township in season 8.
Oh, I feel very invested in this character already.
He would not. He's a cinnamon roll. Sam is my favorite. I want you to look up like the definition of a cinnamon roll.
I think we've had this discussion already, haven't we? One of Nathan's favourite foods is a cinnamon roll.
Cinnamon rolls are so sweet.
Yeah.
I like cinnamon rolls if you don't put like all the icing on top. You know?
Wait, do your cinnamon rolls come with icing on top?
Do yours not?
No, just the pastry and the cinnamon.
I wish you could see the face I'm making right now. I used to be a professional baker and I hated making the cinnamon rolls because like you make these really good, delicious cinnamon rolls and then you just destroy them by smothering them in icing. Ugh.
I think you're going to need to try one from wherever it is you're going that we haven't announced because we were keeping that a secret for some reason.
I mean, we don't have to.
Well, I probably ruined that again. So someone is going to figure it out based on what I'm saying, obviously.
It's okay.
Although I suspect most of our listeners are probably in the It's Super Effective Slack and probably know that where you're going anyway, so.
I mean, I don't talk about it very much.
No? All right.
No. I mentioned it a couple times in like the travel channel trying to ask for advice. So, but that's about it. Anyway, so a cinnamon roll is a character that is very kind and sweet, but faces more hardship and suffering than they deserve. And Sam Yao is the textbook definition of a cinnamon roll.
Fair enough.
Anyway, please tweet at us and tell us if you've guessed where I'm going and also who your favorite Zombies Run character is.
So that's what I've been playing.
Yay!
Shall we move on to the news?
Everyone's favorite section?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody's favorite section. Although it's probably quite short this week.
Let's do it.
So the first thing is, true to form, news was announced literally 2 hours after we released our last episode. The My Time at Portia update for Switch is now out. Woo!
Woo!
So, Rochelle, you have not tried this update yet.
I haven't played
because
anything that I could not play passively.
Yeah. I have tried it, although not a huge amount because I accidentally bought Forager and lost all my time to that. However, I did try it to see what it was like, and I think so. The obviously the headline feature of this is that the headline features are one that it includes a bunch of new story stuff and things that you previously weren't in that version but were in the PC version, which I'm sure you want to talk about in a minute. And secondly, that it was load times were reduced and lag was reduced. So I will say that is true. Load times are reduced in some cases. And lag is definitely reduced. So the lag is a lot better. It's not to the level that I would hope it would be, but it is a lot more bearable, I think. For example, when you're cutting trees, before it was like really noticeable, and now it's still there. You can still definitely notice it, but it doesn't kind of it doesn't make me want to smash my Switch this time. So it's definitely improved. And the other thing that I found really frustrating was in the inventory. You would move between things and it would have massive lag when moving between items and stuff like that. And moving items around in your inventory and stuff like that. So that is also improved a lot. I didn't notice a massive improvement on the loading times going, in your house, out your house, loading up the game. I still found they were quite long, and I want to say they were too long. The problem, I guess, when you're moving around the world, if you're like going into your house or into one of the mines or something like that, I think I counted it out about 10 seconds, and that's too long. Personally.
Yeah, that's rough.
For a game that, I guess, it depends on the game really, right? But for a game that is especially built around time, as much as something like My Time at Portia is, 10 seconds feels like an age, especially if you have a bunch of stuff stored in your house and you're going in to do it and then back out and doing it maybe a couple of times in a day. it really adds up, and that's not great.
I agree. Can I give you a tip?
Yes.
If you put all of your storage boxes in your house, but then you put one outside, you can access all of them from the one outside.
What?
Yeah, because once you open any box, you can scroll through all the boxes at the top.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a nice feature.
On top of that, you can now name your boxes.
Just what I wanted to do. I want to name my boxes. This one's Fred. This one's Henry.
It's so helpful. Like being able to say, this is my raw materials. This is my presents for people. This is my processed materials. I don't know. I ended up with a lot of boxes when I was playing on the PC. You can name them now on the Switch, which I hated not being able to do. There's also a whole bunch of like little things they did, nice things that are helpful. You can have a birthday now.
Yes, and it will ask you that when you start up, even if you've already gone through quite a lot of the game.
I'm pretty sure they added in the option to adjust the speed of time on the Switch, which is something you could do on the PC version that I really missed, because you can double the time it takes to get through a day by going all the way down to like 50% playtime. So you move just as fast, but time just moves slower. It's really nice. I prefer it that way. They, quote, optimize the texture of the ground in the town, end quote. I really hope that means that there's now a path to walk on to get to A and G. I don't know why that's the one thing that just like drives me up a wall, but it does. I suppose I could open it up and look, but I'm not going to.
It's the little things. It's the little things.
Yes. This is an update of a million little things. Like if you go to, I'm sure we'll have a link to the page that explains the whole update. It's very long. It's very long.
Yeah, they're really detailed about what they've done, which is good. As on a side note, I do think, having obviously played it a wee bit more since the update came out, I'm doing that thing that I did with Stardew and then I did with Trio of Towns, which is where I'm just not getting into it to start with. And
I'm starting to feel like this is your default mode of playing games.
Is. I try it and I'm like, and then like 6 months later I come back and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I really like it. We'll see. Although I haven't done that with Forager. I was straight in there and boom, 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 boom. I think the thing that's kind of bugging me a bit about it, and I was talking about this to a few people, and basically I feel like the crafting is really obtuse and complicated. So that your first kind of real task is to build a bridge. And to build the bridge, you have to build two different parts of the bridge. And so to build one part of the bridge, you need copper pipes and you need some planks. And to get the copper planks, you need to build a grinder, I think it is. And you need to put in copper bars into the grinder. And to get the copper bars, you need to build a furnace and put copper ore into the furnace. And then to get the copper ore, you have to go and mine it. So you have to go find out the mine. That obviously not being a massive issue. But then to get the planks,
and then you have to build the furnace.
You have to build the furnace. You have to put the ore in. You have to turn it into the blocks or whatever they're called, the copper things. And then you have to put them into the grinder, turn them into the pipes, then put them together with the planks, which we haven't even talked about, to make half of the bridge. So then to make the planks, you have to, I can't even remember, there's a chopping board or something, I can't remember what it was called. The saw.
Yeah,
you have to build
there's
the
a
saw.
cutting table.
Cutting table, that's what it is. So you have to build the cutting table, and then you obviously have to cut down a tree, get the wood, get it to the cutting table, turn that into wood, and then combine it with all the stuff we've already said before to make, and now you've only got half the bridge.
And then you have to pick it up, and then you have to run all the way to the place where you place the bridge.
I don't know what it is about that, but it's just, the other thing as well is that I really struggled to figure out what went where, and because everything is like, because of the style of game being a 3D third-person view game, everything is reasonably kind of slow. It's not a snappy game. And because of that, and because of the slight lag on all the menus and stuff, actually trying to figure out what I needed to make this bridge took forever. Because you go to the what's the assembly station? You go to the assembly station and you're right, I need to make this bridge. So you go to the bridge and you bring it up and you're like, right, okay, I need these things. And you're like, but wait, how do I get that copper? So then you have to...
This is something that is fixed in the PC version. In the PC version, because you can use your mouse to pan around the menu, you can actually, like, if you hover over copper bars or whatever, it will tell you, make it with this machine. Like, it tells you what you need to get that. And I don't think they do that in the Switch version. I certainly didn't
see that. It doesn't mean it's not there, but I certainly couldn't see that anywhere. I just got really confused with that. And the thing is, right, that in itself isn't necessarily a problem, and all of the things to put together isn't necessarily a problem, because that's exactly the same sort of thing that happens in Forager, which I've had a massive amount of fun playing. And I was trying to figure out why is this, because, you know, I'm currently working on building a factory in Forager, which you have to have glass, and you have to have royal steel, and you have to have, there was something else. And to make royal steel, you have to have steel, and you have to have 6 different gems. And to get steel, you have to have copper bar and iron bar and something else. And to make copper bar, you have to, and you have like the 4 different things. So it's just as complicated. And I was trying to figure out why that doesn't annoy me, but it does on Portia. And I think it's because Forager, because it's a 2D game, because it's really low, you know, graphically intensive, because it's really snappy, because of all that, things happen so quickly. So I can, within, you know, milliseconds, I can be in the build menu looking at the different things and going, oh, that, I can make that and I can do that. And then you can go to your 4 different things that you've built and go into them and see what you can build. And because you've just got like one menu for building all these things, you go in, you look at what you can build and you build it. And because you build everything after you've unlocked it, whereas I guess in Portia, you've got a whole bunch of stuff that you can theoretically build, like you don't unlock these things, although I'm sure there are things that are locked, but initially you've got like 10 things you can build already. You don't initially go and build everything, right? But in Forager, because you've got very little unlocked to start with, you build what you can. You unlock something, you build that. You unlock something, you build that. So you have everything already. And then you can very quickly run across your length of, here are all your things that you can make things with, and see what you can make with them. And then you just get to know what it is. So I think it just, because it happens a lot quicker, you're not getting confused about what makes what.
So the crux of your issue is the speed of the gameplay. Not in like the time passing kind of aspect, but like the lagging kind of aspect. I will tell you that the PC version of Portia is very much like that, because it doesn't have those lags. It's not slow like that.
Yeah, I think even without the lag, your character still is kind of like it's not slow moving, but it's not fast moving. I think I would say that without the lag, Portia would not be fast or slow, it's just a thing. Whereas Forager is very fast moving. I don't know.
Get a horse. Or a llama.
Well, I can't get one yet, because I've not figured out how to do that.
You'll get there. Did you know there's automation in Portia?
I did not know off the top of my head. There's lots of automation in Forager as well.
In Portia, you can build a factory, and the factory has its own independent storage, and you just toss everything you have in there, and then you go into the menu. In the factory, there's like a set number of spaces where you can place machines. So you can place like your cutter and your, I don't know, the things, all the machines you can make that make things. And so long as you have one item that can do whatever that is, you can just go to the main menu in the factory, and there's even like an outside menu on it. And you can say, make this for me. And it doesn't matter how many steps are in between the raw materials and the final product. It'll just make it for you automatically.
That sounds cool. That does sound good. I feel like I will eventually get into it. It's just, I don't know. It's really hard to describe, I guess. I think it's just being a 3D game, it's always going to be slower than a 2D game. And not in a kind of, this is a laggy, slow game. Just your character will generally just move slower. And it's not even just in the running or anything like that. Like in the movements that your character does in every sense and the loading of menus, and it will all just be slightly slower. And I think I just need to get into it. But I think the unlocking thing as well does help. And then obviously I then thought, do I have this issue with Stardew? And I think no, Stardew doesn't have this issue as much because it has one place to make everything. And again, that you unlock things slowly in Stardew as well. There's almost nothing initially you've got unlocked. Whereas I've not even looked as to how many things it is in Portia you have unlocked to start with. But it's a lot that you can't make straight away. I think that is probably one of the big things as well. Like, if you have 10 things you can build, you can't build them all, right? Because they all rely on other things. And I know what they're trying to do with the bridge, because they seem to be making a thing that basically relies on you having all the things already to get to that point, and so therefore understanding what all the things do. I get what they're doing with that, but it feels too quick. I don't know. I'll get there.
You'll get there. You'll get there. I think you just like to play games a little faster, whereas I am quite content to, trying not to swear, to play quite slowly and calmly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very into that sort of like chill, slow down, relax kind of gameplay.
Yeah, I guess when we first started talking about this podcast, we talked about the idea of it. Obviously, in the first couple of podcasts, we talked about what was the Japanese concept you were talking about?
Yashike?
Yeah, about the kind of slow type of game. And I think I do enjoy that as well. Like, I don't think I always are running at breakneck speed around Stardew and Trio of Towns or whatever. But there's probably a bit of a balance that is, I guess my kind of default is probably faster than yours. But I think it still hits the same sort of points in my brain of like mindless nonsense. And that's kind of the thing that I like. So it's not the speed. So the speed is different in the way that we would play, but the mindlessness of it in many ways is the same. Like, get up, water your crops, feed your animals, pet your animals, these sorts of things. And there's like an ultimate goal you're always working towards, whether that's, building up relationships, whether that's, here's a specific thing I want to build, all these things. You've always got kind of one overarching goal that your mind is working towards, but everything else is really kind of automatic and mind-numbing almost. And I guess I just need to get to that point in each game before I really enjoy it. And different games have a different point when I get to that point. Because I think Forager did a really good job with catching me straight away. Like, it's immediate, just like, hey, you're on this island, you've got a pickaxe, get stuff. And so you're just going around, and there's almost nothing you can do initially other than that. And then you hit your second level, and it's like, oh, and hey, here's a bunch of stuff you can do. And oh, hey, you've now unlocked something. And you're like, oh, great, I'll build that. And then you build that, and you can make some more stuff. So it's kind of like this gradual thing. So it doesn't throw you in there, and it's like, here's a whole bunch of stuff to make.
It sounds to me like you're having the exact same experience I had with Portia with Forager. And it's just that we have different hooks that get us and different base levels of speed expectations.
Yeah, probably.
Because what you're saying sounds very, very much like exactly my experience with Portia. But we're having a different experience. Humans are amazing.
So, yeah, we talked a lot about Forager in that update about Portia.
Speaking of Forager.
Yes, there's been some more information about the next Forager update, which is coming out sometime this month, apparently. The Forager Appreciation Update. Hopfrog, the developer, has said that they are building in a single island challenge, which comes from someone on the Forager forums came up with this idea where you just go through the game as much as you can with only using one island, which will be very difficult if you've not played the game. It's all about building up. So you start on one small bit of island and you buy land around it, and you get a bigger and bigger island over time. And obviously just being on one island really restricts what you can do and would make it really difficult to get up high levels. Because I think there's something like you can get up to 64 islands together. So you've basically got for out of the whole game 1/64 of the land. So it's really nice. I like what they're doing here in taking an idea from the community and building support into the game for that as an official mode. Actually taking what people like about it and coming up, taking their ideas and building it into the game is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's the only thing we have about that, but it's another little bit of information, which is quite nice.
Very, very exciting. I'm excited to play this game, but I'm going to wait till it comes out on Switch. And then it will have lag problems, and you'll be like, no, wait, but it's really great.
Yeah. I think it does have an advantage in that it probably won't have as many issues like that, but purely because of the type of game it is. It will obviously have its own porting issues because games that are ported always have some issues. And I can see it. I could see it being more difficult to play with the controls if you don't think it through properly, because obviously it's highly dependent on your mouse. So it could be done really badly with like the analog sticks, just emulating a mouse, but it's really slow or something like that. And that, like, for example, take how the cursor works in Stardew on Switch. If it's like that, it'll be dreadful because it's just kind of so slow and it's not accurate where you're putting it. And I find that really difficult to use. So it just depends on how well it's ported, I guess.
Depends on the porting, depends on the settings. I guess we'll see how it goes.
Speaking of seeing how things go, we have a hint. I mean, it's basically an outright explanation.
It's a very aggressive
there
hint.
will soon be an Ooblets closed alpha.
I'm so excited for Ooblets. I own Ooblets pins. Did you know that?
I did. I think you mentioned it.
I got them and I love them, and I wear my little rad lad around, and people are like, is that a radish with legs and a face? And I'm like, its name is Rad Lad, and I love it. I'm very excited for Ooblets. Yeah.
So I don't know what the state will be in a week when you hear this episode, but there is a tweet that will be in the show notes. They are planning on a closed alpha, and they're probably going to be announcing it on their mailing list. So if it's not already out by then, sign up and you might hear about it and you might be able to get in. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be exciting.
Very exciting.
Yep. I will certainly be trying to get in it.
This is not related, but did you know I recently backed my first ever game on Kickstarter?
It's exciting.
It's none of these games, but I'm very excited about it.
What game is it?
It's called Calico, and it's about you're a magical girl making a cat cafe.
Fair enough.
It looks like it was essentially made for me. I just look up Calico. It was literally made for me. I backed it. I hope it's good.
Yeah, I've not backed a huge number of Kickstarter games, but I have done a few. I backed, obviously, we talked about Summer in Mara. I've backed that.
Mm-hmm.
I backed one called Monster Sanctuary, which is kind of Pokemon-esque, but it's a 2D platformer, and it looks quite interesting. I do have access to a beta, but I've not had time to play it yet. But that looked really exciting, and I backed that one. I think there was something else, but I can't remember what it was. I've done some other Kickstarters, but they've mostly been physical things rather than games.
I've done exactly 2 Kickstarters in my whole life.
Cool.
Want to talk about Flotsam?
I do.
Please leave that huge gap in there. That is my transition. Thank you.
I do want to talk about Flotsam. I put this in because we didn't have very much news, and now we've been going for like over half an hour. But we'll go with it anyway because it's really exciting. So this is a game, and we'll obviously have the link in the show notes, called Flotsam. It's a city building type game, but you are building a floating city on the ocean using debris from the ocean. So you're picking up, things like wood and plastics and stuff like that with your little boat. You're picking it all up. You're building a city with it. And it looks really nice. I love the kind of art style. The colours are really pleasing. And I like the idea of kind of building it up from this, ocean debris, which there'll probably be some sort of political point in it, I'm sure, which I would not disagree with there. But it looks really interesting. I like, most kind of city builders are about kind of enforcing your kind of view of what a city is onto the world, whereas this is kind of like, let's take what we've accidentally left in the ocean, or deliberately left in the ocean, I guess, good out of that. And the reason why I was thinking about this today, so I saw this a few weeks ago and we've not talked about it till now, is they posted an update today of, it looks like there can be like actual individual characters on specific bits of land and stuff like that as well. I don't know whether you can kind of bring them over to your island and build them up with it. I don't know, but they'd implemented these characters shouting at you in a kind of high type way. So I'll post the tweet later on the show notes, but it was this view of circling around the island. You can see your boat in the distance, and there's this guy standing on the island waving, and he kind of goes, "Oh," and kind of shouts, and then he obviously gets fed up and he lies on the ground and goes, "Oh," and it's just, it was just such a perfect little thing. And yeah, I really liked it. So I love the graphics of this. I love the color. I love the idea. And it is currently in early access. Yes.
Excuse me. It's available on early access. I didn't come up with that one. They did. I love it. It's so good. It's available. And that's the news.
I think we're done here.
You're like,
Podcast
that's it.
over.
Close it down. We're not doing a podcast anymore. You made the first pun of the day, so.
Yeah. Puns. They're very punny. So that's the
love
news.
puns.
Yay. We like the news. And it was very short.
We can cut like half of that out.
I don't think I'm going to. I like it.
No. Editor, why?
It was good discussion. Anyway,
Okay.
let's talk about mods, shall we?
Let's do mods. A very easy, a very light topic. Something we can address again in the future if we miss your favorite thing.
Yes. So, Rochelle, what's a mod?
What is a mod? A mod is when a developer and a player love each other very much. And I guess it's more like a game and a player love each other very much. And the player is like, there's something missing here, and makes it themselves. So I'm pretty sure that is the textbook definition that you, as a computer person, would agree with.
Yes. Yes. Are we going to do a serious one? Do you want me to do a serious one? I don't know. Are we doing a serious one?
You could do a serious
All right,
one
okay.
and pick whichever makes you happiest.
So yeah, I guess the simple explanation is that it's a way of adding extra functionality to games that original developer did not do. In most cases, this is generally done kind of without the original developer's, kind of permission or expectation, without them building in a way to do it. Although some developers do end up encouraging that, because obviously it can encourage more interest in their game. Some games also build that in quite tightly. Kind of the typical example of that would be Minecraft. It initially had a lot of community mods, and then eventually they decided to add official support for mods in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the advantage of having official support for mods is that you can, if the developer wants, they can port that across to things other than PC, because obviously the PC is the easiest one to get mods onto. So obviously consoles are more difficult to mod, and in many cases you can end up getting banned from online services if you do that. But if a developer...
I feel like that's probably a significant portion of why most of the mods that you tend to see are usually for PC
so it's
games.
a lot easier. But the advantage, I guess, is what I was saying of the developer officially supporting mods, is that they can, if they want to put the time into it, port that onto consoles and give you support for mods on consoles, which is obviously a massive advantage. We were talking last week about how Forager is planning on putting mods in the game, where obviously it's unknown at this point whether they'll build it into the console versions as well. They could do that if they wanted, or they could just leave it at the PC. Obviously, I know which I would prefer there, but mods are really interesting. You can get a lot of... We'll talk about different types of mods and some of our favourite mods that we've come across in the time. But I guess theoretically, just talking about mods in general, you can have some really interesting mods that can really change things. And for some people, it just kind of renews their interest in the game that they've not played for a long time.
Yeah, I agree with that. It gives a lot of extra reason for people to play games beyond their initial lifespan. I think it's really interesting, from a game development standpoint, because it has this fascinating thing of showing you things that you never considered that maybe your audience wanted or needed. And in a way, it's this really, really long extended test play, if that makes sense. Just the game being out is like a test play where you have people noting and saying, well, this game would be a lot better if you added this to it or added that to it or changed this function. And
I think kind of Minecraft is a good example. Obviously, it's not a farming game, but it's probably one of the biggest games ever, and it had a massive modding community. I can't tell you how long I spent playing and trying out different mods on Minecraft. And in the early days, a lot of things that were built into mods ended up being ported into actual features in the game, because obviously Mojang realized that there was want for certain features and stuff like that, and so they could see how popular different mods were and go, right, well, let's look into making that better, because obviously it's, if you build a mod for a game, especially when mods are unsupported, which they were for a long time with Minecraft, is that so technically the way that it works is you're trying to hook into existing code, and of course that is code that is not really meant to be used by anyone other than the developer. And so you can't rely on being the same between releases. So they might move functions around, they might change how things work. And so if mods aren't supported, then you could see your mod completely break from one version to another. So obviously it can be a lot more stable if it's built into the base game, or if there is official support for mods. So in the early days of Minecraft, when they would port ideas into the actual game, that obviously made things more stable for the people who wanted to do it, and obviously it meant you didn't have to install mods, because that was more difficult. The way you had to install mods was with a separate Minecraft launcher, and obviously it's probably important to note that whenever you're using unsupported mods, there's always a risk of something malicious being in those mods and ruining your saves, or theoretically, any code that can be run on your computer could be malicious in some way. So that's probably something important to note. If you do look into playing mods, just be aware of that. That is a potential issue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that enough of an overview of mods in general?
I think that's a wonderful overview.
Great. Well,
thoroughly covered.
I guess let's talk about some farming games that have mods, shall we?
Yes.
Well, the first one that many would think of when they're thinking of farming games that have mods is Stardew Valley. It has the massive advantage, as we've discussed, of being on PC, so it's really easy to add mods into that. And there is a massive community of mods for Stardew. Obviously, it's important to note that these are, because mods are not officially supported within Stardew, they're only available on PC. But there are so many different types, and we'll get into types in a bit. There's also some mods that we know of for Story of Seasons Trio of Towns. I know that, Rochelle, you have looked into some mods for that and looked at what different ones are, which we'll talk about later on as well. But Trio of Towns,
they're very tempting.
They are. I've also know that Farming Simulator, which is the kind of big industrial one, it has official mod support.
Oh.
Yeah, they've got an official section on their website for mods, which is pretty cool. I think it's kind of mostly focused around just adding items into the game. But yeah, it's they have a section on their website for mods, which is really cool. I like it.
That's fantastic. I got to get on the Farming Simulator train.
I do feel like trying it at some point, but I feel like it's a big investment, not money-wise, but time-wise. I feel like it's probably a lot more... I think you got to get a lot more invested in it than other farming games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just seen it. I just loaded up the page again, and the featured mod is a cowboy hat.
I love hats.
And the next one next to it is Estancia Lapacho, which looks like a type of tractor, I guess.
Neat. I don't know anything about tractors. I have not seen a tractor in years. What kind of fake farmer am I?
Well, we might come on to that later. So that's Farming Simulator with official support for mods, which is cool. And as discussed, Forager is planning to have official support for mods as well, which is really great that they've said they're going to do that. So yeah, those are the ones that I know of. There may well be other farming games that have mods, but those ones certainly do. Stardew having, from what I can see, having probably the most, because it's obviously got the biggest kind of user base. But still not having official support, which is fine. I get when if they don't want to spend time on that.
I feel like Concerned Ape is a little busy continuously working on the game. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So
we've talked about games that have mods. We should chat a bit about the different types of mods. So obviously you might be sitting there thinking, oh great, you can add stuff to games, but what can you actually add to the games? Well,
you can add things like content, different things to do, additional gameplay, story, etc., etc. You can add aesthetics, just changing the aesthetics of games. You can add diversity mods. I don't know what you meant by that.
Well, I feel like it's kind of similar to what we've already talked about before, but there's a kind of, it feels like its own subcategory of mods that bring diversity to games that didn't really have them.
It's going in and saying, did you know that some people aren't white people?
Yeah, so...
And we would like that reflected in our games.
Exactly.
Developers.
Exactly. So adding diversity of people in games, and whether that be races, whether that be
any of the intersections,
other things that
LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
Body type diversity.
Yeah, stuff that had, because I guess
religious diversity
is reasonably quite a common thing for games for everyone to be built off a kind of similar model and not really have. Like, when was the last time, for example, you ever saw someone in a game in a wheelchair?
There's a character in a wheelchair in Zombies Run.
Yeah, but you don't see that, do you?
You're like, damn it, Rochelle.
I mean, that's good. That's good.
hear it. And I will say, just as a side note, on the diversity thing, Zombies Run is actually very good about that. And I think that's probably part of why I like it.
Yeah,
because...
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's very clearly intentionally done and purposefully done. Because it's audio. It's entirely audio. They could have said, oh, well, obviously these other characters are this because, you know, use your imagination. But no, they make it explicit, which is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Because if you don't make... And that's part of why those kind of mods exist. Because if you don't make it explicit, people default to whatever's the most common and comfortable for them. And, like, especially in a lot of Western countries, white, cis, straight people... usually men are the default.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, and I'm really not surprised to hear you say that because having met the founder of Zombies Run, Adrian, he seems like a really good guy, and he seems like someone who really wants to kind of push these sorts of things and improve diversity in games. Follow him on Twitter. I recommend following him on Twitter. He's a good guy. So yeah, I'm really not surprised to hear you say that. And yeah, you're right. Yes, when it's audio, you do have to be more explicit. You can't just kind of assume. And if you were to kind of not put that in and then come back to it later, it almost feels like, you know, a J.K. Rowling type thing. Oh, this person.
No one needs to pull.
Yeah,
pull
exactly.
A
It's
Rowling.
like, you know, oh, this person was Asian all along. Okay, if you say so. You know, these sorts of things are never great. So it's always good to think of these things up front and get them built in, because otherwise it just sounds like you're trying to satisfy people later on.
Nothing speaks to authentic diversity like, oh, this generic character that was so generic that you assumed they were the default was actually something different the whole time. It's not.
No, not great.
Have diversity in your games. It really freaks me out when there's not. I think especially because I try to have a very diverse like friend group, and I work in a very diverse like workplace, and I'm used to that. And so like for me, like that's my default. And so I go into games where it's like everybody's white and straight, and I'm just like, what's happening? What level of the Twilight Zone did I fall into?
Yeah, I think it's I find that it's probably more, so I'm going to try and say this in a way that makes it sound not like I'm not trying. It feels more difficult when you live, for example, in a country that is, you know, 90% white people. And that's not to say there aren't people out there, obviously. But you don't just kind of fall into meeting those people. You actually have to work at it.
What it is that, especially, like, you see this a lot, like, it's always hard for the majority group, like, not that it is necessarily hard, but it takes active conscious work to, if you're not part of some minority group, to include that, because a lot of the times, because of like systematic structures that keep it this way, a lot of people they stay comfortably within their little system, and they don't reach out to interact with other people. And so therefore they don't know about other people. And even if they feel like, oh, we should include other people, a lot of people are like, but I don't know how to do that because I don't understand that experience, so I just won't. And it's this kind of like self-perpetuating cycle of reinforcing a default and leaving particular people out. And the way to break out of that is to actively go out and search out other points of view. And that, like, that's not hard in the sense of like, oh, I can never do it, it's such a challenge, because that stuff is so easy to access, like, especially with the internet. But it's hard in the sense that it's literally time and effort out of your day, out of your energy, to go out and search that stuff out. You know what I mean? And it's worth it, and it's an important thing to do, I think. But you do still have to acknowledge that, like, that effort is still there. Which isn't to say therefore you're excused from it because you don't have time to put in the effort. Like minority groups also don't have time to teach you everything at your convenience. But it's just a hot, messy thing. Anyway, everyone should make more friends and more diverse friends, and we should have more diversity in games. Thanks, diversity modders.
I'm all for more diverse friends, but don't make me make more friends. I have enough people in my life.
Well, it looks like you're going to have to start cutting out the white people.
Yep. I'm okay with that.
You're like, I can think of a few. I'd be fine without.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like, I like diversity mods. I figured that's what you were talking about, but I wanted to be sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, just any... Sorry.
Someone make me a diversity mod for Factory Town. I think I talked about this in the Factory Town episode where it weirded me out that all the little people were white. And I was just like, okay. Like... Because it's noticeable, like...
It is. And once you notice it, it's you can't forget about it.
It's like learning to drive a car. When you're a kid, you're just sitting in the back seat, staring out the window. You're like, oh, this is fun. And then you learn to drive. And then you learn to recognize when people are horrible drivers and when you're going to die when someone is a horrible driver and you're in the passenger seat. And you can never unlearn that. No matter what you do for the rest of your life, every time someone drives recklessly and you're a passenger, you're like holding the dashboard like, please let me live, please let me live. You cannot unsee it.
Yep, true that.
Anyway, also accessibility. Another one I'm a big fan of. Accessibility mods to make it more accessible, to remap controls so that they're easier to use for people who can't use the controls as they're defaulted. Portia.
Get you some... Xbox controllers, the accessibility controllers from Microsoft. Mm-hmm. Get them integrated. They're great.
Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of accessibility, and that also goes beyond controls. It's doing things like adding captions. I'm sure is something people do, like for the hearing impaired or like etc. etc.
Yeah.
There's more than one type of accessibility. Humans are amazing rainbows, and we love them. This has been Politics with Michelle.
Of course, most of the context for that statement will be cut out, so people won't know exactly what we talked about.
You're going to cut out our half-hour discussion on politics and diversity and why people are dumb?
I definitely am. But I'm going to leave this bit talking about how the fact that we've cut it out, I'm going to leave that in.
Okay.
Maybe I'll keep that chunk for if we ever do a Patreon or something. It can be a behind the scenes politics chat that people can access.
Yes, $2 a month to hear
our random politics,
surface level arguments about.
This is the stuff that people don't really know, is that we do just end up going on massive long tangents, and sometimes we just one of us will say something that sets the other one off on a really frustrating thing.
Big mood. You want to talk about some of your favorite mods?
Yeah.
Speaking of, I think the biggest mod for Trio of Towns is probably the True Love Edition, which puts in same-sex marriages, which is great. So you can marry... So I can marry Siluka. You can marry... I don't know, who do you want to marry? Wayne? You're like, no.
I really don't, actually. No.
You're like, no, I'm going to marry Iluka and you're going to marry Stiluka and we're going to go on cute twin double dates. It's going to be great.
Definitely. I mean, I don't think it's just the whole I'm straight type of thing, but none of the guys in Trio Towns really are that exciting in my opinion, but maybe it's that. Maybe it's just they're not a great selection. I don't know.
I mean, there's a fine selection.
A fine selection or a fine solution?
Well, it's frustrating. I will say, as someone who has done a lot of the guys' romance paths, because I have goals, a lot of them are fine. Wayne was surprisingly nice. A lot of them get there's a really, really weird thing with jealousy in Trio of Towns, where a lot of the characters just become like really aggressively jealous, and it's really unsettling.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about the Frank storyline and stuff like that.
The Frank storyline, but like even like I really like Hinata's character. Like, he's really cute. He's like a cheery, peppy. He wants to be an actor. But then he gets like really weirdly possessive and jealous. Like,
yeah.
And it kind of ruins it. Like, there's a lot of characters that do that, and it's kind of uncomfortable. So
I think they are also, I think I remember there being something with Carrie and what's his name?
Carrie and Brad?
Yeah, there's something in their storyline as well, which is weird like that.
Yeah. It's just,
there is a lot of that, isn't it? I've never really put my finger on that, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot of jealousy in this game.
Yeah. And it's weird and uncomfortable. Like jealousy is fine. Jealousy is like a normal and a common emotion, and that's something you can address. But there's a particular line where it crosses into like jealous possessiveness of like when it becomes controlling of like, I really wish you wouldn't talk to that person because it makes me jealous. And that becomes controlling, and that becomes abusive, and that's not okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess that kind of storyline is something that if you don't have anyone on the team who has kind of had an experience with a relationship like that, you could easily miss that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
especially in a lot of culture, that's almost glorified. Like, a lot of culture, I don't know, like I know Tree of Towns comes from Japan. I don't know what it's like in particular in Japan, but like in the US especially, like there's this kind of idea of like jealousy means they genuinely love you. Like, if they're jealous, it's a good thing because it's a sign that they love you and care about you, and therefore you should accept it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, it's kind of more in the kind of teenage culture. I think once you kind of get to adult culture, it's generally seen as a bad thing. But yeah, certainly in like a lot of kind of teen, rom-coms and stuff like that, jealousy is quite often seen as a sign of affection rather than something that can...
Yes. And that's just not a good thing to teach kids. Anyway.
No, jealousy
if you can't communicate with your partner enough to deal with jealousy, you have a problem.
Jealousy is an acceptable human emotion, but you need to keep it in check and not start controlling your partner because of it. That's wrong.
Exactly. This has been Relationship Advice with Al and Rochelle.
Oh dear. So many podcasts within one.
Yes. But so the True Love Edition mod, you can actually marry characters of the same gender as your character. So ladies can marry ladies, guys can marry guys. I believe part of it is you can actually choose the gender of Inari. So because Inari is usually set as the opposite gender of your character, you can, like, if you're a gal, you can have Inari be a gal as well.
Yeah.
Etc. So I like that a lot. I think it's cute. I think it's a really good... I wish you didn't have to mod for that.
Well, yeah. I'm still looking for the version that lets you break up relationships in the game.
Ugh. Let me marry Carrie. Why do I always want to marry the people who are already married? Oh, well.
One of the things I like in mods is expanding things. So there's quite a lot of Stardew mods that I've seen where you can make a bigger greenhouse, make another. There's one that literally just creates an identical copy of your farm next to your farm. So you just basically double the amount of farm space. I know there's one that gives you a bunch of storage space at the bus stop, which is really funny. Because the idea is that, you want a bunch of storage space not on your farm, but close to your farm. So that's a fun one.
You like expanding things. There was that one Stardew mod that was really, really big. Like someone like added sections to the town and made your farm bigger and like added like a character and stories and stuff. But I'm pretty sure he took it down because people were jerks and were really angry at him for not updating as quickly as they wanted.
Entitled people.
Yeah. And so he took it down and was like, I'll put it back up whenever I have time, but I don't have time to stop being a jerk to me.
People ruining it for the rest of us.
Humans are amazing and also the worst.
Yeah.
But that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, one of the other things that, did you know, Rochelle, that I like automation? Yeah, I like.
Do you? I
like
never
automation.
heard.
And there's quite a lot of mods that give you extra automation. So one of them is called, get this, farm automation. And
Wow.
it gives you some extra automation in Stardew Valley. So one of the things it has is an item collector, which is, I guess, kind of out of date now with the 1.3 update and the 1.4 update both having things that collect more stuff. But I think it still does some things that you can't do in game. The other thing, and this is really great that it does, is you can create a whole bunch of supply chains. So you can like line up all these things next to each other, and when something is finished in one, if it can go to the next, it will go into it. So for example, you can have a furnace to create bars of gold, and then once they're created, then they'll go into this was a bad example. Okay, so let me try that again. There, you can link together a whole bunch of machines to create things automatically and pass from one machine to another. If there are things you want to do that with, and then they can just place it in a chest, and you can get it out and just sell it. So you can basically come up with, here's something I want to. Here's the raw materials. Throw the raw materials in. They'll automatically go into the right machine, turn into whatever it is you want them to turn into, and then be put into another chest and in the state that you want. So you don't have to like put something in, wait to pull it out, then put it in the next machine, then pull it out, and then go and sell it, which is really good. I like that.
Have you seen the one that lets you feed and pet and do every animal task with a single button push for every single animal on your farm?
I have not.
Oh, I'm going to link that to you.
Not?
You would love that.
I would love that. I feel like you wouldn't, though, because you like petting your...
Yeah, I like petting my pigs, but you don't, so you would love that.
I feel like that. I feel like that one might be too far for me. Like, I'd want to be able to... Like, I would be fine with creating an item that automatically does the patting, but I feel like linking one button to pat and milk and take the eggs and stuff feels like a little bit too cheaty for me, I guess. I don't know what it is about that specifically, but that just feels a little bit too much for me.
I don't know, man.
I like making efficient systems, but I guess there's a difference between making an efficient system and just kind of short-circuiting things.
I think it's probably very much meant for people who have like 3 dozen pigs. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I definitely get why people like it, but for me, it's just not one I like. The efficiency I like about automation is like, here's a bunch of machines and they're all doing what they're meant to do. Yeah. I believe, let's see, you can, with this mod, you can also, if that's too cheaty, you can have it you have to pay to do it. So it's like you're paying a farmhand, or you can make your kids do it as a chore. I think that's cute.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I pulled up the picture and they have 7 barns and just like a huge field of pigs.
That's many pigs.
Ugh, life goals. I love pigs. They're good.
Yeah. The other thing the other mod I really like is Stardew Battle Royale.
Oh my gosh.
Have you played this, Rochelle?
No, because it's not my kind of thing. You would love this.
It is exactly what you think it is. You are plonked down in the middle of the town square, and you have an axe, and it's a battle to the death.
That's so intense.
It is. It's crazy, and it's like completely against everything that Stardew was made for. But that's the beauty of mods.
That's fantastic. Maybe we'll do that sometime. My favorite kind of mods, I think, are like aesthetic mods, which don't really impact gameplay. They just make things look nice. So like those range from everything to like crazy fun ones. Like there's Stardew mods where you can make all of your farm animals Pokemon, which I think is wonderful, to like mods that just like change the appearance of buildings, or like put wildflowers in your grass, or there's a lot of mods like character customization mods. Like there's a lot of like new hairstyles, new clothing, There's one that makes your children take after your spouse physically, which I think is really cute. There's a lot of mods that change like character art, especially in Stardew Valley.
Yeah, some of which should not be done.
Agreed.
I mean, I guess, do what you want. I don't want to see that.
To each their own.
Yep.
This is a family-friendly podcast, so I'm going to say...
We're gonna skip over that.
So I'm going to say there's a lot of mods making like the character portraits like very anime style, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Like you can go find like a dozen different art styles that are just like 10 million anime styled ones. And there's ones that are like very realistic style ones and stuff like that. So there's one that gives Linus a coat instead of a coat of leaves. I'm a really big fan of things like that. I think because I'm really into just sort of like the aesthetics of games and how that can impact your mood and the gameplay. So I appreciate those a lot.
Yeah. That going back to Minecraft slightly, one of the ones that I enjoyed the most back then was the Pokemon mod for it, where you could catch Pokemon and with Pokeballs and stuff like that. So completely pointless because it was all entirely aesthetic. You didn't ever do anything with them, but there's something fun about just like adding something into the game that is entirely aesthetic but shouldn't be there, and you're just like, it's funny, like it's Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, I didn't need to pull that up, but that's impressive. There's so many good Stardew mods. Like, I know someone did one that like overhauled Marnie's story, where they just like rewrote her whole story and gave her like 1 trillion lines of dialogue and stuff like that, which I like because she's an underrated character. There's ones that change the breed of your cat or dog. There's ones that like, I'm just going on a rant at this point. There's a lot of mods. I know
we could probably spend all night talking about so many different mods. All the good mods. Let us know. Have you got any favourite mods? Are there any mods that we missed that we should have talked about?
Tweet us all of the great mods. Every single one. Please tweet us every single mod that's ever been created.
Maybe not all of them.
For any game ever.
Maybe not.
No, you're not into this idea? Oh, we are a family-friendly podcast, as evidenced by the number of times Al has heard me say, I can't say that, I can't swear. Trivia fact, I'm a very sweary person.
Yeah, let us know about the mods that you enjoy. Are there other games that we missed that have mods that we didn't talk about? You can email us from our website, harvestseason.club. As Rochelle said, you can tweet at us, THSpod. You can tweet at me. I am at the ScottBot. That's Scott with 1 T. Rochelle, where can they find you?
Oh gosh, you can find me on Twitter at Miss Delaney with 2 L's.
Are you just looking through more mods just now?
And 2... Yes? This one replaces your cat with an Eevee.
I think we've lost Rochelle. So...
Okay, I'm closing the page.
Thank you for...
I'm closing the
listening.
Page.
Words.
Until
next time, have a good harvest.
Have a good harvest.
Woo.
Woo.
Yeah.
The Harvest Season is created by Rochelle Delaney and Al McKinley. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, theharvestseason.club, for show notes, including links to things we discussed and transcripts for every episode. Thanks for listening. We talk about the babies?
Shall we start the podcast before we do that?
I guess.
Well, that may well be our outtake for the episode.
Shall we record a podcast? I guess.
All right.